Decided to do things a little differently today. So I'm hanging out here in the park. I'm having a good time. My day is not over. I've still got at least a few hours or so of stuff to do. But I thought I would do this earlier because I didn't really feel like making this video later today. Okay, I'm hoping I'm not covering up the mic. My TikTok video grew from 190,000 to 250,000 followers, so it's still blowing up. I posted all of my response videos today, and and I had good fun with that. I think I did a killer job of it. There was just one video where I gave into the urge to make fun of a guy, but otherwise I was pretty mature and professional, I'd like to think. As for the game itself specifically, I haven't worked on it yet today, but I'm going to once I get back to my apartment. And I wanted to, first things first actually, was get my new logo posted everywhere. I've been sitting on all the art for that, so I want to put that together, post it absolutely everywhere, and probably put it into the front of the game itself as well. And then I'm going to upload the new version of the demo, which is basically just with that logo switch out and with the multi-thread optimization for pathing that I mentioned yesterday, which probably doesn't really do anything, but it's worth putting it out there. Why not? Let's see what else I got. Yeah, and then other than that, I was just going to continue working on the 5th level of the game, specifically with those archers. I want to play around before I continue mapping out the rest of the decorations for the level. I want to continue with playing with the actual gameplay with the archers and perfecting that and making sure it feels balanced and works well. I think it's already in a decent enough place, but just really polish it up. And my only concern with that is just that the rooms are a little tight. I think it'll be okay, but just in case, I want to test it out to make sure that I don't set up all the decorations only to then find out that I need to make the rooms a little bit bigger, right? So, that's pretty much it for that. Do I feel like discussing the topic? Yeah, why not? You know what? I've been teasing it for so long. Let's go ahead and give you my the lowdown on the advice I have to give you for dating if you are a man, particularly a straight man. So I learned 3 things basically. First of all, actually a little background for me. I did not start dating much until I was older. Honestly, till I was 27. I had a little bit of experience when I was younger, but not much. And I was definitely in general pretty clueless all around when it came to dealing with women and very oblivious. So anyway, I didn't start till I was 27 or so, and most of my experience came from dating apps, and I had some dates outside of that as well, but it was mostly that. And so I have a lot of particularly funny stories and experiences that I think most guys won't have the experience that I did, I think, and I'll get into that because I kind of got to see things from either side. But first of all, I wanted to share the 3 main things that I learned, in case it's helpful for anyone who ever watches these videos, about being, I don't know how to describe this, about being good at dating, about being attractive. So I found that it basically comes down to 3 main things, and it's pretty simple, but it's stuff that if it doesn't come naturally to you, might take some practice, and you gotta most especially grow some guts. So first of all, I would say it would be assertiveness and confidence. So the most common thing I would say I experienced in terms of something that will turn a girl off as fast as possible is if you're unsure about yourself. If you don't know what you want and you don't know how to stand up for yourself. If she feels like she tells you an opinion of hers and you're going along with it just to make her happy, it's not good, bro. It's very bad. I think the key to this in practice, because it's easy to say just be yourself, it's a cliche, but there's a reason this cliche exists. But I think the key to it really is to think about what are you like when you hang out with your guy friends or even your family or whoever you're most comfortable with, where you can feel free to totally act like yourself. I feel like, when I'm hanging out with a friend of mine, for example, if they say something that I think is stupid, I'll be like, yeah, what you just said is fucking dumb, dude. Right? And maybe you don't have to be so aggressive, but the idea is that you want to have that same kind of attitude when you're on a date. You don't want to change who you are in any way. So I think the best way to do it is you just think about what you're like in the most natural situation, and that should be your threshold, your idea of what it means to be yourself, so to speak. And if you find that you're kind of this reserved, timid version of yourself when you're on a date, that's probably the mistake that you're making. I actually had dates, man, where I would they would go really well, and then I would see the girl a second or a third time, and suddenly it was like some kind of insecurity would come over me, and they could just tell right away. Like all of it, I turned from like this super self-assured, like confident, charming guy, and on the next date I'm like, oh, is that okay? Is it okay if I do this? If I, you know, like, you know what I mean? Just coming off like super timid and shit. So yeah, I mean, I think for me, sometimes that maybe came from overthinking things, or just, you just get nervous, especially when you get a date with some girl you find like super hot. you so badly, I think as a guy, you don't want to screw it up, and you try to like logically solve problems, but so you think naturally maybe if you go along with what they want, then you'll be able to win them over. But it's the opposite. Just like how in friendships and in anything else, and most of this advice that I'm going to give, by the way, one of the most interesting things I found from all of this is that it's useful in all situations, like everywhere socially. If you know how to do these things, people will generally, I shouldn't say they'll always like you, they very much might not like you, but you'll feel more free, more open, and you'll have a much better time all around, if you can follow it. So first thing is, yeah, being confident, being assertive, being yourself, and not changing anything to try to please anyone. And try to replicate the comfort that you feel around your closest friends or whoever else, and try to replicate that all the time, no matter who you're hanging out with. Number 2 is conversational skills. You can learn how to have a conversation. It's one thing that's funny to me is how many people go on dates and they describe experiences where it's super awkward and they don't know how to keep a conversation going. They find that it's very like, you know, dead air for a long time. But you can learn to talk to anyone. And the easiest thing about it is to understand that everyone likes to talk about themselves. So if you just take a genuine interest in someone and you can ask them questions about themselves, you can keep a conversation going forever, especially if someone wants to talk to you. If they don't, you'll get one-word answers and it'll be really hard. But even then, I'm telling you, if you insist on it and you really show curiosity in someone, you can get almost anyone to enjoy talking to you, and they'll think you're an amazing conversationalist. And the way you do this is super easy. You can also just think off the top of your head of obvious things to talk about to get to know a person. Where are you from? What was it like growing up there? You know, do you have any pets? What kind of books do you like? What kind of movies do you like? What kind of music are you into? Do you like to cook? What's your favorite kind of food? What kind of restaurants do you go to? Whatever. There's so many things that can pop into your head like that. And then as they, oh shit, I think something bit me. As they start to tell you whatever, you'll notice like parts of their story are things that you can ask them more questions about. And then, you know, it's just kind of how a conversation usually flows naturally anyway, or they'll say something that you can relate to personally, and then you can tell them a story of your own that reminds you of that, and whatever. So if you just learn more than anything to be genuinely curious about someone and how to ask questions, I'm telling you, like, I never ever once in all the countless dates I went on had a single one where it was super awkward and we didn't know what to say or whatever. And I think it just comes down to that, is being able to just keep things going with lots of questions if you have to, or even if that doesn't work out or you're freezing up on that, even just saying whatever's on your mind, like no matter how weird it is. That's part of also being comfortable with yourself, is think of whatever happened to you recently. If you were with a friend of yours, what would you be talking about right now, you know? So yeah, number 2 is conversational skills and just being able to talk to anyone. And finally, number 3, this is, I think, also one of the most important ones that I was kind of clueless about, and that I think a lot of guys might struggle with, is somehow making it romantic. So some guys might get the experience where you go on a date, maybe you have a really good time and the conversation was flowing and everything seemed great, but you get home and you get a message that's like, you're a really sweet guy. You're a nice guy, but I'm not ready for a relationship right now. I wasn't feeling the spark. And pretty much what this always means is that you were kind of a bitch. Basically, the only difference between a date or between like a relationship and a friendship is the sexual part. So if you don't do anything at all to create that distinction, to set that tone, it will feel like you were just hanging out with a friend. And I have a theory that for some people this might not matter. There are exceptions where, for example, if you go out with someone who themselves doesn't have a lot of dating experience, they might not care as much. But most women especially, they'll have been on dates before, they'll be used to guys hitting on them. So when you don't, it's weird to them that you didn't make any kind of move, and that can be a turnoff. So the key to doing this, and this is one of the key things about both the conversational thing I wanted to say before actually, and this as well, is that you don't need to be smooth or charming or anything like that. There's all these like dating coach, pickup guy, pickup artist types of guys who give all this kind of advice, and they go through all these like crazy theories about things to say and pickup lines and all this kind of stuff, but none of it really matters at all. Most of the time, like, you meet someone and they know within a few minutes right away whether they like you or not, and whether or not you have a chance, and literally all you have to do is not screw it up. All you have to do is not be like a total fucking weirdo and say something like perverse right off the bat or whatever. And as long as you can do that, you'll be all right. So the kinds of things you can do in terms of setting that tone is even just like, it doesn't have to be anything, like I said, anything smooth or anything over the top. Even so much as just complimenting someone physically can work well, but also putting your hand on like her back for a couple seconds, or like just doing anything to break the touch barrier, or to if you're too shy to go in for a kiss at the end of the date, for example, even just saying that you want to do that, like literally just any kind of expression that makes it obvious that you have some kind of sexual interest in this person is enough. And if you don't do anything at all, you'll risk ruining that tone. So yeah, to me, those are the three main things. And if you can know how to do those three things, of just being able to hold a conversation, be yourself, and make at least some kind of a move, you're probably in. And if you find that someone's not receptive to these things, even when you seem to be doing it well, it pretty much means that they don't like you, and you're probably wasting your time, and you're better off finding someone who's naturally interested in you right off the bat, rather than trying to make things work with someone who's always going to be giving you a hard time anytime you screw up or make any kind of mistake. It's much better to be with people who naturally like you, and that's another thing to also get used to as well, that I think some people have a problem with as well, out of like insecurity, where if you have certain insecurities, you might find yourself specifically attracted to people who don't really like you back. And I think becoming more confident and comfortable with yourself is realizing that a part of what should make you interested in someone is the fact that they're interested back in you. And so that's something you want to read for when you're talking to people, and not waste your time on people who don't naturally like you or jive with you. So as for my online dating experiences, I have kind of mixed feelings about it, because I feel like my blanket advice is like, don't do it, don't use it. But I think it might be that for me it's a kind of a weird case, because I don't know, I think I'm kind of an unusual guy, and I'm too weird in a way where I don't know how to present myself on there, and at the same time, if I present myself as too generic, I end up going on lots of dates with people who are, everyone's great, like almost all the women I went out with were awesome, but it's not the kind of thing where I could see myself spending the rest of my life with them, right? So I don't know. At the same time, though, the reason why I hesitate to say not to use it is because I do nonetheless know so many guys whose girlfriends or even their wives are people that they met off of those apps. Um, I okay, so I was using them for several years, and I think, okay, first of all, there's the basic stuff that you obviously want to have a good set of photos. And for your bio, you just want to say like a few simple things about yourself and not overdo it. You're just kind of trying to pique someone's curiosity and not over explain yourself. But the thing is, I found, is that compared to the kinds of people you can attract in real life, and this is where I might get a little, might sound like a bit of a dick, but there's no other way of putting it, and I gotta be honest about this. You will probably usually attract, if you're a guy on these apps, you'll probably be matching most of the time with women who are a couple points below your league compared to the kinds of women you'd be able to get dates with if you were talking to them in real life. And I think it's just because of the dynamics of how things like that work between men and women. And that can be really demoralizing because they, not only do you only match with people who you might feel like you're more attractive than, but they will talk to you like you're dog shit, okay? Like they'll give you a really hard time too. And that can obviously completely mess with your sense of confidence, your own confidence in yourself. Now, you can of course fix this. I think one of the most important things is it really depends on what kind of a life you lead yourself. If you have you have like an active social life and you go out a lot, and so you have a lot of photos and you're active in your community or something like that, you can probably do all right. And I feel like if I think of most of my friends who all managed to meet someone through there, that's probably the case for them. But if you're like me and you're a weirdo and you don't go out all that much, you haven't traveled a lot, you don't have a lot of photos, and like most guys, you don't take tons of photos of yourself, you'll probably have a hard time with that. So you need to go and then find a way instead to take other photos, and you can get a photographer to help you with that, or just whatever, get friends of yours to help you. But no matter what, it's hard to make it look really natural when you're artificially taking these photos, right? But nonetheless, it's really important to do so. And I found that even with messing around a lot with that, it didn't take too much of a difference. Most of the time I was always, as long as the photos were decent enough, you tend to always be matching with the same kinds of people. Now, one day though, several years into this, and I felt like, by the way, so most of the time my experience was maybe being able to get a day like once a week with someone I wasn't really super interested in. So it was very demoralizing in that way. And only once in a long while I would meet someone that I had some real interest in. But one day, and this is kind of the funny part, one day I discovered this one photographer dude who specialized in making dating profiles for guys. And it sounded like he knew what he was doing. So I signed up with him and I got him to help me out. And it was honestly like stepping into a different world, man. This guy, let me put it this way. I went from, like I said, being able to maybe get a date like once a week with someone I wasn't even all that interested in, to being able to get 3 or 4 dates a week with very attractive women, okay? And naturally, you're gonna want to know, what the hell did this guy do that suddenly made it so drastically different for me? And there was a few things to the way that he took the photos. Like, he was really careful to try to get you in the most natural pose and make you look like confident and masculine and all that kind of stuff, like you're having a good time. But really the most obvious, straightforward difference was that he made me look like I had a lot of money. Okay? Not in an obvious douchebag kind of way, like as if I'm standing in front of a Ferrari or some shit, but just like every photo is me in really nice clothes, sitting in some upscale hotel or whatever, a cocktail bar, a fancy restaurant, stuff like that. Like all things kind of subtly suggesting that I'm super successful, I have a lot of money or high status, whatever. And he explained to me that when people are swiping through on these apps, most of the time they're making their decisions in literally a fifth of a second, right? So when they make these decisions, it's based on the most primitive parts of their mind. And so for a lot of women, it's things like your resources, your status, your money. So as awful as it is to say, it's like that's the incredibly superficial nature of this, right? And I thought, honestly, when he first showed me the photos, I thought like, okay, I can see how I might get more with this, but it's probably all gonna be like, money obsessed shallow bimbos or something. But no, dude, I got so much more interest from every type of woman you could imagine. I had people who were like, my profile was still otherwise very much like me on a day-to-day basis. I said I come across as like the nerdy type. I like to go to a jazz bar once in a while, stuff like that. But I would have girls matching with me who are like super outdoorsy, hiking types, camping types. I would have just everything, all types of people. And those same women before who I used to match with, they would obviously still be interested. But now, instead of talking to me like I'm garbage, they'd be messaging me first, and I'm not kidding, sometimes I'd be getting like propositions for sex just straight up right off the bat. Like, I cannot describe how insane it was to see this completely different side of the experience for, I guess, guys who are just more successful. I don't know. Because I mean, nothing else really changed. I'm the same person. I don't know, I don't really look any different. My old photos were nice too, but something about just presenting yourself in a different way radically changed people's reaction to me. So once I had that experience, and I'm not gonna lie, I mean, two things. First of all, it makes you kind of cynical. Once you see this difference, once you see it's like I'm the exact same person, but I just put on a fancy watch and a suit jacket, and suddenly I'm like super attractive. I mean, it's kind of fair because, I mean, the way you present yourself matters, but it's just so bullshit thinking that like how many potential women out there that I could have had a great time with, I couldn't get dates with before just because my clothes aren't fancy enough. But if I talked to them in real life, it would have been a different story, no doubt. So yeah, it kind of makes you cynical when you see how it works like that. And then at the same time, obviously, though, I'd be lying if I didn't say I had a pretty good time. It was a lot of fun. But also, the other messed up part of it was that I was able to see how, now I wouldn't do this because I'm not that kind of guy and I have my principles, but it was really easy to see how guys who are in this position, especially guys who are just naturally, let's say, exceptionally good looking or whatever, and who could also get tons of dates like every week if they want to, how easy it is to not only treat people as replaceable, but how easily it would be to juggle multiple people at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that there's so many guys out there who are dating 3, 4, 5 women at the same time, like, I get it now. Again, it's not something that I would do personally, but I could see how tempting and how easy it was to do that if I had wanted to. And I won't lie, even though for the most part I never really was dating like tons of people at the same time, other than maybe for like first, second dates. But anytime I was seeing someone for more than a few dates, I would stick with it and not see other people. But even still, I have to say, it was so easy to be on dates sometimes and think to myself, if there's anything I don't like about this person at all, there's 12 other girls talking to me right now. You know what I mean? I could just go home and just immediately replace her like that. And it's a fucked up way of thinking. There's no incentive for investing, So having had that experience, I can't help but think that that's a big part of the reason why so many people are also jaded by these dating apps, because all the guys your average guys are stuck kind of at the bottom, all trying to date the same girls, and then no doubt lots of women are all trying to date these more successful, super handsome looking types of guys, and the whole thing is just so drastically different from how that dynamic works in real life, and it gets drilled down into something so simple on there. So like I said, I think that it might still be worth using if you are average guy with if you can get decent photos, and it can probably still work out for you. You maybe just have to put a little more effort in. But if you are a super weirdo like me, or or you just have a very low tolerance for dealing with, I don't know, if you're a little sensitive, you have a low tolerance for dealing with it hitting on your ego or your confidence, might be a bad idea. I don't know, at the end of the day, I think no matter how you look at it, if you can grow the balls to just go talk to people in real life, that's always going to be better than using this stuff. So anyway, so that's my experience. It was pretty interesting. I guess you could also try to use the advice of trying to make yourself look really successful. I actually did have money, so I wasn't completely bullshitting or anything, but still. You can always go rent clothes, right? Go rent some fancy suits and walk around the city and take photos of yourself. But that's the thing. I stopped, by the way, to be clear, I stopped using all of these apps. I deleted all my photos and everything because it just, after years of using them and meeting so many different people, and it was a good time, and I learned a lot about myself. But I never once really met anyone who I felt I could spend the rest of my life with. There's maybe one person who kind of came close, but even there were certain things in our lives that didn't really line up. So I've stopped with them completely, and for me, more than anything, what I really hated about it is, and I don't know if this is just my personality type, but it just felt like it really gamified the whole thing. Like, it lost its humanity. I felt as though I was incentivized to not really act like myself or to not be myself, and I have to present myself a certain way or talk a certain way. And I didn't do that when I was actually on dates and when I met people, but still, the experience of having to get dates in that way, I don't know, it all just rubbed me the wrong way. It felt really misleading to me, and so I was like, yeah, screw this. Once I felt like I had learned everything I had to learn from all these experiences and gained more self-confidence and now being much more comfortable with myself, it seemed like a waste of my time. And I don't really even have time for it right now with how busy I am with this project, but I would rather just live my life now and, whatever. If I meet someone, I meet someone. If I don't, I don't. I'm also the type of person where it doesn't, like, the thought of even being alone my whole life doesn't really bother me. I'm so used to it. I kind of talked about that before. And that's another thing as well that I want to say about dating, because a lot of people now, they talk about it like you should always, like, don't ever settle, always look for the perfect person. But I honestly think that most people will settle and probably should, because it's like anything else in life. Like, not everyone can get the best career, the best, you can't be the best athlete or the best at this or that, you know what I mean? Like, everyone has different categories in their life where they will succeed more than others, and other ones where they might not be as fortunate as others. And I feel like it really depends on your tolerance for how much time you can spend alone versus how badly you want to be with somebody else. And it's normal to want to be with someone else. We're meant to be very sociable, right? So I think for a lot of people, settling to some extent actually makes sense. And it's really more about finding someone that you can tolerate well enough and that you like well enough, rather than everyone trying to match up with the perfect person. I feel like statistically that's probably impossible. So I think that's probably another element as to how much this can work for you. But yeah, so I don't know, hopefully some of this advice helps someone out. And that's all I got to say about that. I'm done for now. I'm gonna go get some food and get back to work. See you tomorrow.